Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I'm going to be on Lock It In here in a few minutes. But until then, this is called Outkick the Show. This is where the world comes to get its daily affirmation, its daily dose of reality. And by the world, I mean about 50,000 of you. All right, let's get right into it. Chargers Chiefs tonight. Gambling pick right off the top. I am on Chargers plus 3.5. And I am on the over in this game. Now, Stephen A. Smith, if you haven't heard, did an unbelievable goof. And I'm going to try to play this for you right here. I'm going to try to play this for you, and I think you're going to be blown away. And I think you're going to say, my God, this is amazing. Stephen A. Smith decided to break down this game earlier today on First Take. And I'm going to play you this clip, and it is phenomenal, all right? Let me pause it, go back to the beginning. All right, this is Stephen A. Smith. Let me get it up on my phone. If you haven't heard it already, Stephen A. Smith, prep king. Nobody has ever broken down a game better than Stephen A. I've long said it. All right, here is the video. Hopefully you guys can hear it. Here we go.
I'm going to have some faith in Spencer Ware and thinking that, he can do some things. I'm keeping my eyes on this matchup right here.
Spencer Ware's out.
I'm sorry?
Spencer Ware is out.
Oh, yes, I forgot. I'm sorry, Max. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Absolutely, he is out. But I'm thinking Tyreek Hill. I'm thinking Patrick Mahomes. I'm also looking at the San Diego Chargers on offense, and I'm thinking about Hunter Henry and the way that he's played this year and as effective as he's been. He's going up against Derrick Johnson, and I got to keep my eyes on that because I'm looking at it from the standpoint.
All right, so there is Stephen A. I'm not sure 100% if you could hear it, but Stephen A. Smith, in the space of 20 seconds, referred to the LA Chargers as the San Diego Chargers. I'm going to break down that audio right there. That is, first of all, easy to do. It's very easy to screw up and make the mistake of saying the San Diego Chargers. I can understand that. It's even somewhat easy to say that you think Spencer Ware is going to be a big impact on this game, even though he may well be out. Confession. I didn't know Spencer Ware was out in this game until after I'd already sent in my gambling picks on Lock It In early this morning, because I thought, you know what, that actually makes a lot of sense. Spencer Ware, I thought, probably would score a touchdown. He may not play, so I changed my pick to Travis Kelce. Having said that, Hunter Henry has not played this year, and Derrick Johnson is no longer on the Kansas City Chiefs. As whiffs go, that's about as bad of a whiff as you can get on a major national television show. All right? We're going to break this down, I'm sure, on the radio show tomorrow, too. But what is amazing about that clip is you need to understand how television works. There is a huge staff of people involved in breaking down a game. It doesn't happen by accident. We have, I don't know, like 10 guys and girls who work on Lock It In every day, and they help make sure that we're informed to be able to go on and talk knowledgeably about a game. So I haven't heard anybody say this, but I think it's possible somebody hates Stephen A. Smith and was just piecing out on the show, and they knew he just took whatever they sent him and said it verbatim on the air without doing any of his own research. And I think it's possible they just plugged that in and they pieced out on the show, and they were like, screw you, Stephen A. Smith. You're going to look like an idiot when you go on the air and say that the matchup that most intrigues you on this game is Hunter Henry and Derrick Smith, because I don't think that very many people would ever even come up with that matchup. Like, I don't buy in. When you say Hunter Henry's had a really good year and he hasn't played all year, I don't even think that many people know who Hunter Henry is, right? I just don't even believe that there are that many people, unless you're a hardcore Chargers fan or you're an Arkansas Razorback fan and you remember the pass that he threw back the lateral against Ole Miss. I'm sorry, Ole Miss fans. Most people don't know who Hunter Henry is. And some of you are saying, oh, Derrick Johnson, whatever. My point here is that's not the matchup that anybody would naturally go to. That's actually kind of an obscure matchup to decide that you're going to focus on. Mahomes, all right. Tyreek Hill, all right. Phillip Rivers, even Antonio Gates. There are lots of people that your average NFL fan knows who are on both of those shows. And the idea that you would end up with Hunter Henry or Derrick Johnson, I'm telling you right now, it just doesn't happen by accident. Somebody said, Derrick Johnson's a great linebacker. He's not on the fucking team. All right? I don't care how good of a linebacker Derrick Johnson is. He's not on the team. Okay? If you shout out a guy who is not on the team, I don't care whether he's good or not. He's not on the team. That's like saying you think that Alex Smith is going to be great on the Kansas City Chiefs, and he was on the Kansas City Chiefs for a long time. The man's not on the team, so you can't cite him. It doesn't happen by accident. Spencer Ware is injured. It's easy to see how you forget that Spencer Ware is injured. He has played this year. It's easy to see how you screw up the San Diego Chargers and the LA Chargers. Everybody does that. They just moved. Nobody knows Hunter Henry. And Derrick Johnson, or whatever the hell his name is, ain't on the team. That's a big whiff. I think Stephen A. got set up. I think somebody was leaving First Take. This is their peace out moment. I think they cut and pasted that in. They knew that Stephen A. Smith would go full on Ron Burgundy because he doesn't spend the time to do a lot of prep. And if they told him that the biggest matchup in the game was Hunter Henry against Derrick Johnson, he would go on television and say it and look like an idiot. Now, they couldn't have prepared for the Spencer Ware situation or the San Diego Chargers thing, but that turned this into the Mona Lisa of bad takes on television. I have a lot of sympathy for misspeaking, but when you go 0 for 4 in a 20-second segment and you cite a guy's performance all season as playing well and he hasn't played, and he's Hunter Henry, and I guarantee you Stephen A. Smith couldn't pick Hunter Henry out of a lineup, and then you also cite a linebacker who is no longer on the team, that's a pretty big swing and miss. I love it. I think it's funny. I actually think Stephen A. Smith, if he did this once a week and got something completely wrong, I actually think it's much funnier than him actually breaking down the game. When Kornheiser or somebody like that, that's why they have Stat Boy, when they utterly fail, I think it's really infinitely funnier. I would just own this if I were him. I'd be like, you know what? I got a staff. One of my staff members put that into a report, and I just read it. And they just threw me right over the middle, and they got me wrecked. I would put together a clip of all the worst hits in the NFL, and I would put my face on it if I were Stephen A. Smith, and I would replay this clip, and I would go into it over and over and over again. I would lean into it. I'd be like Sheryl Sandberg at Facebook. When I goof up, I just go own it. Just lean right into it. But this is such a big goof up that there's no way to explain how it happens without somebody, in my opinion, trying to set him up, because focusing on Hunter Henry and Derrick Johnson is so insanely ridiculous that I don't understand how that could happen. Somebody's just saying, why would those be the players that he would think of? Exactly. Now, the other thing that could have happened, here's my other hypothesis as someone that does television. If it wasn't a peace out moment, I'm leaving, Stephen A., you're an ass, I'm going to humiliate you. It's also possible that somebody just cut and pasted a preview that they had done for First Take of a prior Chargers and Chiefs game because they play twice a year. And this is the same breakdown they gave Stephen A. last year. And he said the same exact thing this year because somebody just took the breakdown from last year's game, and instead of doing a new write-up to give him notes, they just cut and pasted the notes from last year into this year's game. That also could happen. As somebody who does television, I can easily see how one of the sleep-deprived PAs is deciding, hey, I got to get this prep work done for Stephen A. Smith, and they just took the document from last year when I believe Hunter Henry and Derrick Johnson would have actually been playing, and they just moved it over. Now, this is why I don't try to be an expert on everything. People are like, hey, Clay, how come you don't talk about Major League Baseball every day on your radio show? Because I don't watch Major League Baseball every day. When I go on my radio show, the promise that I'm making to you, and same thing with my bets, is that I actually watch the games. I might get things wrong, but I sit down and actually watch the games, and all of the opinions are mine. When I sit down to do the radio show, I will not have received one single note from my radio crew. So when I sit down to talk at 5 a.m., when the mic comes on at 5 a.m., nobody else has done an ounce of prep that I have gotten into. So if I get something wrong, it's all on me, but there's nobody out there who's sending me a bunch of different things and takes and saying, hey, have you considered this angle? Here's a bunch of stats to help you. It's all me. As you get more famous, you have entire staffs that will put together arguments for you, and that's why I think that Stephen A. Smith was just relying on the staff, the PAs there, and I think that's the way they set it up. I think they set it up, and somebody either set him up and put him over the middle and let him get wrecked, or there was somebody out there who just cut and pasted from last year's breakdown of the Chargers and the Chiefs, and they took last year's matchup and they put it in here. He may well have gotten Ron Burgundy, which is hysterical. It's really, really funny. Now, I get it. Stephen A., I don't know how long his First Take on. He also does a television show. There are relatively few people in the world who do what I do, right? I wrote 3,000 words about DAZN and the Canelo Alvarez fight and how that could change the sports media business. I did 3 hours of live radio. I'm going to do a half hour here talking to you guys on Periscope and Facebook, and then I'm going to sit down in the chair and do an hour more television on FS1. That means at any given day, I am live on the air for 4.5 hours, plus local radio interviews that I do to try to keep everybody happy. So there is a huge amount of individual content that I do on a daily basis. And I don't always get every fact right. I say sometimes things that you guys disagree with. I come back, I say, you know what? You may disagree with it. Opinion, the difference between opinion and also facts. But if I get a fact wrong, I try to fix it. And I don't know how you fix this if you're Stephen A. It's actually, I think it's hysterical. I think it would be amazing. The funniest thing to me about the entire clip is the way that Teddy Bruschi is sitting there and the face that he makes as Stephen A. is saying the matchup that most intrigues him is Hunter Henry against Derrick Johnson, because I have found this to be the case. Sometimes when people are so wrong, you don't correct them because they're so wrong that you're like, wait a minute, am I the one that's really wrong here? Everybody on the planet has been in that situation where there's a conversation going on, somebody says something that is so irrationally wrong, and you think for a minute, wait a minute, maybe I'm the one who's wrong. Like, I remember this happening on ESPN was doing a broadcast of the Auburn-Texas A&M game, and somebody was like, who's going to win the SEC East? And literally they were broadcasting an SEC West game, and the announcer said, oh, I think Auburn's going to win the SEC East. And nobody actually fixed it, right? Like, nobody corrected it because it was such a goof that I guarantee you everybody else on the broadcast was like, wait a minute. Like, that's something you should immediately correct. But sometimes when you're so wrong, you don't end up getting it corrected. And by the way, in honor of Stephen A. Smith's goof up, I decided to wear my Woke Center shirt today. So that is my analysis of how Stephen A. Smith could have gotten that segment so awfully wrong. So awfully, awfully wrong. It's almost impossible to even contemplate how that happened. All right. I got a crazy hot take here for you. Did you see Michael Jordan slap Malik Monk in the back of the head after Malik Monk ran onto the court and got a technical foul in the game last night featuring the Charlotte Hornets? Jordan came over and he smacked him in the back of the head twice. It's actually kind of funny to get smacked in the back of the head by the greatest of all time. But I want you to think about this for a minute. What would have happened if a white owner had smacked a black basketball player like Malik Monk in the back of the head after he got a technical foul, and that had happened and gone out virally. Can you imagine the insane reaction if a white owner had done the same thing that Michael Jordan, a black owner, did to Malik Monk when he behaved in a knuckleheaded fashion? The entire sports media cottage industrial complex would have imploded on itself, demanding that the white owner be fired, saying this was evidence of a plantation mindset. There would have been tons of thought pieces about how far have we really come from slavery if black players are still getting smacked in the back of the head by white owners when they make bad decisions. This would have turned into Roots, and Malik Monk would have been freaking Kunta Kinte out picking cotton on the plantation before all was over. There would have been some exaggerated talk about how the owner might as well have brought out the cat of nine tails, might as well have strung him up and whipped him, and how America hasn't really changed at all. Jemele Hill would have probably made $1 billion talking about this. Sean King, he would have been everywhere arguing that no NBA player should ever play again until the owner was forced to sell the team and maybe walk down a Harlem street naked while everybody chanted shame, 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 and pelted him with all different sorts of ridiculousness. This, I'm telling you, ESPN would have rehired Jemele Hill if a white owner had smacked a black player in the back of the head. They'd have been on the phone. They'd have been like, you know what? You called the president of the United States a white supremacist, and you tanked our ratings, and Woke Center collapsed. But this was the moment you were made for. This is like when the commissioner has to go back and get Batman after the bad relationship. They would have run right up on the roof at Bristol. They would have put the Jemele Hill sign up in the sky. It would have just been a broken cracker to just throw up in the sky. I'm going to make myself laugh. It would have been a big broken cracker. Jemele Hill's argument, like it's like the Batman has the bat signal. They would have just thrown up a broken cracker, strobe light over ESPN. Jemele Hill would have strapped in that suit, and she would have been back on the lot in 10 seconds, walking right in that studio to talk about how racist the NBA was, even in 2018. Y'all know that I am 100% telling the truth. This would have been the greatest moment of Jemele Hill's career. But I say all of this for this reason. Most people laughed it off because it was Michael Jordan, and they didn't turn it into a larger racial issue. Why can't we do that with all stories in sports? Why can't we assume that people are not awful? Why can't we assume that somebody is not a plantation owner? Why can't we assume that an owner who might happen to be white could have been like, I can't believe my knucklehead player did that, and that he would have done the same thing to a white or black player because he was just frustrated over the stupidity of it? Why can't we assume better things as opposed to worse things? One of the, I think, worst things about social media in general is that immediately when an action happens, by and large, people automatically assume the absolute worst about the person involved. They don't stop for a moment and say, you know what, maybe this isn't that big of a deal. They immediately assume the worst possible situation. And then everybody overreacts. I'm not even kidding about this, by the way. If a white owner had done what Michael Jordan did to Malik Monk, I'm not kidding when I say certainly he would have been suspended by the NBA. Adam Silver definitely suspends him. And I think there's probably a good chance that they would have demanded that he sell the franchise, and it would have turned into a massive, ridiculous, over-the-top racial incident. Right? Period. Yet Michael Jordan does it, and everybody just kind of laughs it off, including Malik Monk, including the team, even when the defense is a ridiculous defense. Did you see what Michael Jordan said? Michael Jordan today said, and I quote, imagine a white owner says this. Hornets owner Michael Jordan said it was, quote, a tap of endearment. After what, and then he said, Jordan told the AP there was no malicious intent. It was like a big brother and little brother, no negative intent, only love, exclamation point. Can you imagine if a white owner said it was a tap of endearment, said, oh, it was like a big brother and little brother, and then said no negative intent, only love? That would have led to an even longer suspension. And then it would be another story about how disrespectful white owners are of black players. And then inevitably there would be something they'd done in the past that somebody else had said was racist. They'd find like 3 people that decided they didn't like playing for him. And then he would inevitably be forced to sell the team. He would be publicly branded a racist plantation owner, and his public life would be over. That's what would happen. You know this. You know that's the way the story would go. All I'm saying is think about it for just a moment. Think about for just a moment how that would have been handled. All right, finally, I got to go do a television show here in a minute. Big Ten fans decided to come after me today. Big Ten fans decided to come after me today and say, the reason why the SEC is dominant is because they don't play cold weather games. Y'all, I'm just starting to feel so sad for Big Ten fans. They have had so many bad arguments out there that it is mind-blowing. The reason this all started was yesterday, the Bear on College Game Day tweeted out that SEC teams who are 6-point or more underdogs are 16-4 against the number in bowl games, and they have won 11 of those games outright, 6 or more point underdogs, which is a pretty interesting stat that suggests that SEC teams are undervalued. So I said, by and large, over the last 20 years, you would have made a ton of money just blindly betting SEC teams in bowl games. In fact, 60% would be your win percentage if you had just blindly bet SEC teams. And my argument is that this is the weakest argument I've seen in a long time from Big Ten fans, who, by the way, the Big Ten has not scored a point now in the 2015, 16, 17, or 18 college football playoff. And they have now moved on from the SEC is overrated, and the SEC, they still say that. Alabama hasn't played anybody, all these ridiculous arguments, to now, well, if they played in cold weather, they'd never be able to succeed. And some knucklehead even tweeted me, Tim Tebow never played in cold weather. He wouldn't have been anywhere near as good if he played in cold weather. He won a playoff game in Denver, and it was freezing that day. Also, if this logic held true, then all of the SEC players who dominate in cold weather environments would never be able to dominate. This is one of the dumbest arguments of all time. Here's what you need to do. This is a message from me straight to Big Ten fans. Your football is nowhere near as good as SEC football. Accept it, understand it, and live with it. Don't make stupid arguments that make everybody realize how dumb you all are. The SEC owns college football. That's a simple fact. Every now and then, you might win a game against the SEC, but it ain't happening very often. The best players are all in the South. This has been proven out. 12 straight years NFL teams have all drafted SEC players more so than anybody else. I understand it might be frustrating to you. I understand it might burn right to your core. But the truth of the matter is this: the SEC dunks all over the Big Ten in college football, all balls to the face, Scottie Pippen on Patrick Ewing style. Live it, deal with it, don't be a pussy and argue anything else. I am Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. I'll be live in about 20 minutes on FS1. You can watch me there. This is, as always, the most trusted source in all of sports media. Outkick the Show. Go watch today, lock it in, and listen to me tomorrow morning on Fox Sports Radio. DBAP, unless you need to SBAP. Kiss it. See y'all.